Hi Sully, hi Wyatt, hi Hendrix. Hope you're all doing well. Today we've got the book Little Red Riding Hood. There she is. Let's see how many mistakes I make today. Once upon a time there was a little girl who lived in a village near a forest. Her name was Little Red Riding Hood. Do you know why she was called Little Red Riding Hood? It was because she had a beautiful red cloak and a hood that was made by her granny. There it is. The girl was very proud of her cloak and she wore it all of the time, so everyone called her Little Red Riding Hood. There she is, showing all of her friends and family. One day Little Red Riding Hood's granny was ill in bed. Little Red Riding Hood helped her mother to bake some cakes for her granny. Little Red Riding Hood took these cakes to your granny. Take these cakes to your granny. Hurry along now. Come home before the sun goes down and don't talk to strangers, said Little Red Riding Hood's mother. Little Red Riding Hood put the cakes in a basket and set off for her granny's cottage on the other side of the forest. The sun was high in the sky and the sunlight filled the forest. Birds chattered in the trees and little creatures bustled to and fro across the path. Little Red Riding Hood was very happy. There she is, smiling away. In the distance, Little Red Riding Hood saw a clearing full of bright blue and pink flowers. She wandered off the path towards them. Granny will love these flowers, she thought. She picked a large bunch and then continued on her way. By this time, the sun was low in the sky. Ooh, there we go. There's her picking the flowers. Suddenly she heard a noise, a scuffling, shuffling noise. A big grey wolf stood in front of her. "Where are you going?" he asked. "I'm going to visit my granny. She lives on the other side of the forest, and she's not very well," replied Little Red Riding Hood. There he is. And he's a stranger. She shouldn't be talking to strangers. Little Red Riding Hood had forgotten that her mother had told her not to speak to strangers. "I'd like to visit her too," said the wolf. "You know what? You go your way and I'll take this path." The wolf took a shortcut. Little Red Riding Hood continued on her way. There she is in the woods on the path. Now and then Little Red Riding Hood stopped to pick some more flowers. By now the sun had set and the forest was filled with shadows. It's very dark, scary looking. The wolf arrived at Granny's house. He knocked on the door. Tock, tock. "Who's there?" asked Granny. "Little Red Riding Hood," replied the wolf in a squeaky voice. "Lift the latch, my dear, and come in," said Granny. The wolf bounded into the room. He pulled the old lady out of her bed and bundled her into the wardrobe. He jumped into the bed and tucked himself into the bedclothes up to his chin. He's not a nice wolf. Little Red Riding Hood arrived at her granny's house. She knocked on the door. Tock, tock. Who's there? Said a little voice. Little Red Riding Hood, she answered. Lift the latch, my dear, and come in, called the voice. Now Little Red Riding Hood had never seen her granny ill in bed. She was astonished. Granny, what big arms you've got, she said. All the better to hug you with, my child, said the wolf. Granny, what big ears you've got, she said. All the better to hear you with, my child, said the wolf. Granny, what big eyes you've got, she said. All the better to see you with, my child, said the wolf. Granny, what big teeth you've got, she said. All the better to eat you with, my child. And the wolf jumped out of the bed and chased Little Red Riding Hood around the room. Just at that moment, by the light of the moon, a woodcutter was passing by and he heard a terrible banging and clanging coming from the cottage. He rushed inside and chased the wicked wolf right out of the forest and far away. Little Red Riding Hood thanked the woodcutter. Then she unpacked her basket, and Granny and the woodcutter and Little Red Riding Hood sat down to a feast of cakes, and they lived happily ever after. He was a kind man, the woodcutter, wasn't he? He was looking after them both. There we go. I hope you loved the story, Little Red Riding Hood, today. And I hope you're doing fantastic at home, keeping safe and warm, because it is quite cold out today. Grandma's got her coat on. I love you, Sullivan, Wyatt, Hendrix. See you sometime soon. I love you. Always thinking about you. Bye-bye for now.